You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast. My name is Brando, episode number 457. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Bernard Fowler. How are you, sir?
Good, Brando. How are you?
I am good. I know you're somewhat local, like you're wearing a Queensbridge shirt. I'm in
Oh,
Queens,
man.
right? I got my New York Knicks, RIP New York Knicks season.
Yeah, I had mine on. I took it off. I was mad at them.
It was a good season, though. I know not the ending we wanted, but best one we've had in a while.
Best one we've had in a while. Hopefully, next year they can do it again.
Right on. Are you a diehard? Not to get off sidetrack.
Yes.
Yeah, diehard. Yeah.
Diehard New York Knicks fan, man. I used to play a lot of basketball growing up, so
Right
the
on.
Knicks was my team. I'm still living in Clyde Frazier Willis Reed days.
Oh man. Yeah, to date myself, I'm the Patrick Ewing, John Starks days, the day that
There you go.
days we can never beat the Bulls or the Spurs. That's my days. So,
Right.
but anyway, so you're in New York now. As we're recording this, you have two shows coming up in Jersey with the Rolling Stones,
Yeah.
which is it a homecoming for you? I know it's for us New Yorkers. New Jersey is like not quite, but is it always a homecoming for you? A lot of friends asking you for tickets.
Man, you have no idea, man. It's always a homecoming. It's always a homecoming when I come back. When I come back to New York. Yes, everybody's, trying to get tickets. I'd love to take care of everybody, but it's impossible.
Uh, that's too funny.
I've got a lot of family here, so trying to
Where
go
where
on.
did oh no, sorry, where did you grow up? I know you're local, but whereabouts?
I grew up in Queensbridge.
Oh, you did? Okay. I guess making sure I wasn't sure if it was a college or if it was just I don't know. I'm in Queens now, but I grew up in Brooklyn. You never know
Right.
where where you represent.
Yeah. I'm in the city right now, but yeah, I was born in Jamaica, Queens. And we left Jamaica, Queens and moved to Queensbridge. I must have been about 3, 4 years old.
Okay. Right
So
on.
yeah. And I stayed in Queensbridge, until I left, you know, after after college. And yeah,
Cool.
that's the hood. That's the neighborhood.
I don't know. It just makes me feel good when I talk to somebody who's local and just somebody who's achieved the heights and seen the world like you've seen it. So I'm gonna kind of so many things to talk about. The Stones. I do want to establish because I thought it was a funny because a lot of people ask how I get interviews, and it was
Mm.
you're interactive. Yeah, you're very responsive on social media, which isn't always the case, and you're very kind. I don't know if you expected the social media excitement around you posting a picture with Izzy Stradlin. We'll get to that. But on Twitter, I had like thanked you. I was like, you know what, Izzy? One of my listeners responded saying, I would not have recognized him. He wants to keep it discreet. And I had said to you, well, that thank you, Bernard, for sharing because he does like to kind of be discreet. And
Mm-hmm.
I had said, I actually had reached out to you for an interview. If you can't do it, you're busy, no worries, since I had some sort of opening there.
You know what? After you posted that and I wrote that, I thought about it and I'm like, shit, man, I should have asked Izzy if it was okay to post. But then I saw that he posted it.
Oh, is he did?
I thought I saw somewhere where he posted it. I thought so. I thought if
Uh,
I don't know if that was him or not, but if it was, I thought, okay, well, I guess it's okay. But yeah, Izzy and I met in the early Guns N' Roses days. And every time I see Izzy, he's the same cat. He's always the same cat. mellow, mellow as a cello. Izzy is always mellow. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody about him today, and he left the gun situation, pretty early on, and at a high point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just my observation, but like I said, Izzy is so mellow. And I think, and again, this is just me thinking. I don't know for sure, but maybe maybe that high point might have been too much, and maybe he didn't want that high point, or maybe he just wanted to do something else. But, I'm always happy to see him because he's always the same cat, mellow.
I love to hear that. And you know what? Since I won't be, sometimes I like to tease something and leave it later on the conversation. But since we're
Yeah.
on the topic, because I was going to mention, and it shows, I think, why you two get along. Because from what I have interacted with you, you're very mellow, you're very cool. And in response to, hey, I sent you an email, you just wrote, who are you? I thought that was so funny. I don't have that sense of ego or anything. I'm like, who am I anyway? I always say, who am I? So I'm like, this guy is awesome. And then I explain, I'm Brando Weissler. I work for IR. I have this pot. So I just wanted to establish that off the bat, that that's how cool you are to be able to.
Well, look, I mean, it didn't take a whole lot to be kind to people, and you know, I know how I feel or how it is meeting an asshole, so I try never to be one. And
Right.
and when you sent me that message, maybe a week or two before that, I had gotten another message from someone else asking to do an interview, and found out later that he's asking for Rolling Stone shit.
Oh.
He's asking for Rolling Stone tickets. So I called Michelle and said, hey, cancel him now. You know, so
No, I don't. I don't need anything from you. I'm appreciative of your time. That's all it is.
right on, brother.
And it's funny because I didn't even realize. I mean, I know the Stones are on tour, and I knew they were coming to MetLife. I didn't realize it was tomorrow as we're recording this. But then I'm thinking, I can't wait because we were talking off the air. My 1 year old who was screaming in the background for taking a
Yeah,
bath.
where is he, man? I want to hear him scream some more.
He's taking a nap in the back. I think the bath was traumatizing. His second bath
You
ever.
sure you didn't bop him on the head?
You know what? This is a great segue though, and we'll get back to Izzy and GNR and stuff, but it's the learning about you. That's what I'm here about.
All
So
right.
so when you're not you're when you're gonna remember when you were 1 years old, but when you were young
Mm.
and you started along this path, and I want to give credit to some listeners who asked these questions because people were excited to hear from you. This is from Nick Wilson on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. He wants to hear how you got started singing in the church, school choir, etc. However you did. How did you find that, like your Instagram handle says, Bernard Fowler sings? How did you discover that voice?
At home. At home and in Queensbridge. In the hallways. Um, the hallways in Queensbridge have a great echo.
Okay.
Great echo. So I never sang in church. I never sang in church. I went to church a lot. I witnessed a lot of singing in church. My mom sang in church. My grandma sang in church, and my auntie sang in church. But I never sang in church. I just went to church a lot. Um, you know, how did I get started? I mean, when you're a kid, I used to watch all the music shows that were on TV. Ed Sullivan and was the Tammy show. We saw that. All those early shows we used to see. When the Jackson Five came on TV, and the Temptations and Chuck Berry, James Brown. And we'd see those shows, and when I was with my friends, we'd be in the hallway playing. It's probably winter time. We'd be in the hallway playing. Yo, did you see that last night? Did you see that last night? And we'd be singing. We'd start singing in the hallway. And I guess I realized I had a voice, but the first time I think my first, I guess, outing, my first public outing or singing in front of an audience was my older brother. My older brother used to be in the Glee Club in grade school, and he used to come home and talk about Glee Club. So when I got to grade school, I wanted to be in the Glee Club. And I think the first time I ever sang in front of an audience, I'm not sure if I might have sang in a chorus in the Glee Club, but the first time I think I sang actually solo was in a chorus in junior high school.
Okay. And do you feel?
Before that, it was always in the street or in the hallway or something.
I love that though, how organic that is, and you're just hanging out with friends. And back in the day, where everybody would watch the same thing and talk about it the next day.
Mhm.
I know I'm younger than you, but I do remember the days pre-internet where there was just appointment television and there were shows like that. I mean, I caught the tail end of shows like Soul Train, or I go back and watch American Bandstand, things like
Right.
that. Uh, I can't imagine the effect. Well, I guess I can now because of you, that they had on some kids. So that's cool that that influenced you.
Oh, yes, it had a big influence, a huge influence.
Did
Huge.
you and performing it's one thing to perform with friends, right? But obviously when you start performing in public in Glee Club, was it natural for you? Was there any nerves involved, or were you a natural performer?
It was a lot of nerves involved. There's a lot of nerves involved. I still get a little nervous before I perform. I I think it's good for me.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
it's good for me. Yeah, I still to this day I get a little nervous, my hands sweat a little bit. But once I open my mouth and I sing that first note, I start to settle.
I like it. Yeah, that's the same thing. I'm nervous before every interview, but once I get into the flow and yeah, I start to settle. Um, this is another a question I want to credit to a listener, so Samantha Zwicker on Facebook. How do you warm up your voice singing? Do you hum maybe? So
I
has that
do
changed?
hum.
Okay.
I
Oh,
do hum during the day. If when I wake up, I'm humming. Especially I do it every day. I'm humming or I'm lip trilling. I'm lip trilling some sometimes during the day. You know, uh, I walk outside and I'm walking up the street by myself, and I got those lips moving, and uh, show day. Show day, I have a warm up routine that I got from a teacher that I do, and that's it. That's my day. It's important. It's important for singers. I posted something recently, because someone asked me about it, and I found something. I found something, and I posted it. Can I take this
yeah.
call?
Yeah. No, it's so if you're
No. Okay, it
okay.
stopped.
Okay.
So yeah, most days I'm just walking around, just keeping the voice warm,
Ugh,
keeping the voice warm, and I do a more in-depth exercise during show day before the show. Something that I learned from a singer by the name a really great New York singer, Janice Pendarvis. She taught me, how to warm up through a straw in water, and
okay.
that's something else that I do a lot. So thank you, Janice.
I haven't heard of that one because I like asking this question of singers because some people don't rehearse at all, and I'm just like, how does that even possible?
And yes,
Uh,
yes, and I understand that. I totally understand that because when I started singing, there was no warm up. I would walk in and wherever, or someone would call me to do a session, I'd walk in and start singing, and they would. And I remember sometimes people would say, man, you just walking off the street and start singing like that. And I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. But, as time went on and, I met some people, some really great singers, and found out that they were doing it. And then, I decided to start taking, some voice classes, and it makes a difference. It does make a difference. I have I've been lucky, I injured myself singing early on. I had gotten sick. I had strep throat that put me in the hospital. And along with strep throat, I didn't know, but I was developing a node on my vocal cords. I didn't know. I just know that it felt kind of funny inside. But when they looked and they saw how inflamed my throat was, they said, "You have strep throat." And also, I think my mother said, "Well, he's singing." And they said, well, they looked and said, "Oh, well, you're developing a node on your vocal cord." And I could feel it. So I was in the hospital with strep for a while. It really put me down. And there was talk of, surgery, and even at that young age, I knew I didn't want to go under a knife. So I took it easy. I actually stopped singing. And a lot of salt water, gargling. I met another singer who told me about cayenne pepper, and I would do a cayenne pepper gargle, which I absolutely hated, and salt water gargle. And after maybe a month or two, it started to dissolve. And then when I felt that it was gone, I didn't have that pain there. Then I started singing again, slowly. And then I started looking for people to show me things. So that didn't happen again, because I was just going on natural ability. I didn't know much about voice at all.
Okay, that must have been a scary like moment in your life to
Well,
have taken
yes,
away from
because
you.
it was so early in my singing career when that happened to me. It
Okay,
was really early. So yeah, it was a little scary, but you know,
I
I
know
don't.
I'm jumping. I might be jumping ahead a lot of steps, but how do you go from the hallways and then recovering from this node and going from just being using your natural ability to asking, meeting the right people, knowing what to do? How do you get involved with this dream job of the Rolling Stones, touring with them for decades and working on their solo projects? How does that happen from a kid from Queensbridge?
It's not easy. It's a story that I've
I'm sure.
told many times, but I'll give it to you again. I'll give you a short version. Coming up, when I started doing a lot of vocal stuff, um, I'd met Michael Beinhorn and Bill Laswell, and they together they had a project called Material. So they called me, and I met them. And I was doing projects with them, for them. Uh, a lot of different projects, but one of my favorite projects with them was uh John Lydon's, album. But so they uh uh they had produced Herbie Hancock's record Rocket, Future Shock album, and I had done, I think I did most or all the vocal work on that album, singing, and they had done that's when sampling started. So most of the voices on that record you hear, if I'm not singing, I'm being sampled. And
Interesting.
I started to tour with Herbie Hancock, and during the tour we had a break, and I went home, and I got a call from Bill Laswell to come to London. I flew to London. He took me to a house, I walked into this house and it took me into a room and there was a guy sitting on the floor and the guy turned around and it was Mick Jagger and Bill's. This is Bernard. That's how it, and I met Mick and we started singing, and the next day I was in the studio and I was, working with him on his first solo album, She's the Boss. And some years had gone by, I ran into him again and he was doing some solo dates. And I did a solo tour with him, and some few years later he called and said, hey, the Stones are going out and I could use some help. So, and there I was. And it sounds kind of fast, but it took some time, but in between that time, I was always trying to launch my own thing. I was living in London before I started working with Mick on the first Stones record. I was living in London with a band called Tackhead. Tackhead is Skip McDonald, Doug Wimbish, and Keith LeBlanc, who we just lost a couple of months ago, and mixologist Adrian Sherwood, who was actually from London. And those three I mentioned, Skip, Doug, and Keith, they're the original Sugar Hill Rhythm section. And they had a project. And so when I did the tour with Jagger, I had heard of Tackhead, I had never seen Tackhead. So when I joined, when I did the tour with Jagger, I had met Doug Wimbish, and he said, yeah, hey man, Tackhead's doing a gig at the Ritz. I went to the Ritz and saw Tackhead, and I was like, oh man, you need a singer. Next thing I knew, I'm in London living with them and trying to do that. And then after that, that ran its course. And then I came back and I put together another band with a guitar player, Stevie Salas. And Stevie Salas, and that project was called Nickel Bag, not Nickelback. Nickel Bag. That used to rub me so bad. That rubbed me the wrong way.
People used to think that you were a Nickelback.
Or people would say Nickelback, and I'm like, no, Nickel Bag. I mean, Nickelback came after
Yeah.
Nickel Bag, and Nickel Bag was a lot tougher anyway. But yes, in between, in and out with the Stones, I was, doing my own band thing. It's funny because whenever I'd be in Europe touring with whichever band it was, it seemed like every time a tour would end, I'd get home and the phone would ring and it would be Keith Richards on the end of the phone. Where are you? I'm like, I just got home. Get your ass here. I'm like, get my ass where? Come here, wherever they were. It just seemed to work out. It's amazing how things happen, it's just amazing how things happen.
Well, I
You know,
appreciate, I know you've shared that story several times, and I appreciate you sharing it, a condensed version here, but that lends itself to let me bounce off a couple things that I also want to know is because obviously your talent speaks for itself, and that's why you're in demand. But musicians like whether it's Keith or Mick or just musicians in general, they may try something new try someone new, or
mm,
just your relationships don't last as long as yours have with those guys. What do you think it is, other than your talent? Do you think it's got to be you're cool as a cucumber like Izzy? It's got to be that you're an easy guy to work with. I would.
you're absolutely right. Brando, you're absolutely right. And I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I never in a million years thought that me hanging out with these guys would be this long. Because I knew I knew when I started working with them that nobody stayed around too long.
Right.
They were always changing. They were always changing personnel. So I knew that. I knew that. So I was always surprised when, when I got a call. I wasn't, you know, it wasn't like, oh, the Stones are gonna go out. Oh yeah, I know I'm gonna be on that tour. It was never like that because I knew their history. But it was like that. It has been like that. So, and why? I think for me being with them so long, I know the music. I was a fan of the music before I even started working with them. I know the music. Um, Singing with the Stones is not easy. It's not easy. You just can't walk from any gig and walk into their world and start singing and it feels good or it makes sense. You've got to spend time there for it to feel good. Even when I started, it felt a little, it feels a lot better now, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And I think the other reason why I've lasted so long, I know my place. I don't get in the middle of their arguments. Their arguments, that's Mick and Keith. I've got nothing to do with that. The only thing that I'm here for or there for is for the music. I'm there to help this legacy stay as strong as it is. That's it.
Right on. Yeah.
That's it.
Team player.
Team player all the way. I love them both. But again, their shit is their shit. They want to fight, be my guest. I got nothing to do with it.
right, right. And since like, it's cool that you never expect anything. You're humble, your role or place, however you want to phrase it. But this lends itself to a question from Mind of Grace on Twitter, because you have access to these musicians in this legacy band. Have you
Mm,
ever thought about, because you've released, like you mentioned, other bands and solo records, like a blues album, which some of the Stones as your guests? Like, have you ever been tempted to be like, hey, I'm working on this. Do you mind
mhm.
doing a track? Like, hey, Mick, do you mind doing, a solo record, a solo song with me? Or hey, Keith, does that happen?
Yeah, yeah, that's been that has crossed my mind. And it's funny. I Mick actually played on a Tackhead record for me.
Okay.
Uh, he's playing a Tackhead record for me. I've I've obviously I started, working with Mick first, but then I sang on a Keith's solo records, Main Offender, I believe it was, and I produced two records for Ronnie Wood. So produced and wrote two records for Ronnie Wood. So I'm there. They need a hand, I'm there, and they know that.
Okay. Because I think it would be, because people again love your voice, and you're part of this band, but just to you see it in the Guns N' Roses world, to keep it
Yeah,
tight
yeah.
when
There's some time for that. It's funny. I did actually do a blues record. What was it last year? Last year, but we kind of had everything, everything we needed. But it would have been good. I actually didn't think about it. It's called the Chess Project,
okay.
and it's all old blues stuff from Chess Records. That's reimagined. It's all updated. So if you get a chance, have a listen. I think if you like the blues, you'll like that.
Well, I do, and that's kind of like a big topic now in the Guns N' Roses world, because Slash just released a blues record. Have you gotten a chance to hear any of it? Any of the
No, I haven't, but Slash played on my he did play he played on not my last album, but the album before that. The album's called The Bura.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It's called The Bura, Bura, and Slash is playing on that. And then actually he's playing on two tracks, but I know one that I'm thinking about right now is it's a blues track that I wrote. It's called My Friend Sin. Then Slash is playing on that.
Okay. Well, he better get you when he for the next blues record he does. Because
Mhm.
that was a name that I was like, where's Bernard? He should be on that.
Right on, right on. Send him a message.
Oh, okay. I'll work on that. I can't even get the guy for an interview. We'll see. But
Nah,
that's
he's another great cat. Another great, and then another always the same dude. Always the same cat. Mellow and sweet as pie. I love that cat.
and I love hearing that that's the consistent message I hear about Slash and Izzy, that they are such great people. And that makes you
They're
love a
great
band more.
people, man. I don't, I don't, I try to only know good people. I've got no time for assholes.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. You and me both, my friend.
And I
Absolutely.
don't care how talented they are. If they're an asshole, I don't want to have anything to do with them.
Yeah. In today's world, block. I don't need you in my life.
There you
Block.
go.
So you know what? Let's backtrack because I don't want to keep you here forever. But you were talking about knowing GNR in the early days, and of course Izzy, and talking about Slash. This is going. This I'll bounce this off of a fan question. This he's a lawyer, Jeff Hack. He's been on the, but he's not a hack lawyer. He's a good lawyer.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, what a
I know,
name.
right? I know what a name, right? Bernard was there in 1989 for the Atlantic City and LA shows with the Stones and Guns N' Roses. Those are pretty infamous shows on the GNR side. So I'm curious what you may remember from those shows. You know, almost breaking up on stage and some issues with Living Color. Uh,
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's when I met them. Uh,
okay.
yeah, it got pretty messy at one point. But again, it's none of my business. I had nothing to do with that shit. But one thing I do remember was around that time we were doing pay-per-view from Atlantic City.
Hmm.
And I think Eric Clapton was a guest and Axel was a guest. And I remember walking on the stage and Axel sitting off in the corner by himself. And I and like he didn't have anybody with him. Maybe somebody was there, but I didn't see him with anyone. And I think we were doing sound check or whatever, but he was by himself. And I remember walking over to him and talking to him. He seemed a bit nervous. Again, that was early in their career. So I'm sure they were just trying to find their footing. He was trying to find his footing and, maybe needed some anger management, but, you know, it, it was what it was.
I
Yeah,
mean, I know opening for the Stones was a big deal to him and to Izzy. I mean, that was to be nervous. That was a big deal for them. So I understand that part of
that
it.
was a big deal for them, a big deal for Living Color. It's funny. I saw Will Calhoun just 2, 3 days ago. I had dinner with Will Calhoun from
Okay.
Living. Yeah.
That's cool. So, I mean, since you know everybody, and everybody knows you, so when Izzy goes to see a Stone show,
Oh,
do you do you recognize him in the hat and glasses? Does he come up to you? How did that happen? Is he undercover? Like, is he like, did he buy a seat? Is he watching side stage?
I don't know. Well, this last time that I saw him, like the time I saw him before, he was already on stage, and I got on stage, and I was like, "Izzy, what's up, man?" And we talked for a bit. And this time, I was on my way to the stage for the show, and I was walking, and I heard somebody call my name. And just at that point, I forgot something back in the dressing room, and I said, "1 second." I ran back to the dressing room, and I came back, and I'm walking, and I looked, and I said, "Oh shit, that's Izzy." That was him that called my name. And I stopped, and we talked. We talked for a while. we talked for a while as long as I could, and took a picture, and what are you up to? How you been? Just a quick catch up. Quick catch up. It was good to see him. I love running into Izzy because, like I said, he's always mellow as a cello. But I did say to him this time, I asked him, I said, "Hey, Izzy, what are you up to, man? What have you been up to?" He said, "Man, I'm good, just writing and stuff." And I said, I need to sing for you, Izzy. So hopefully he heard that.
I hopefully, I mean, that's why, this simple picture, fans, and we mentioned he left a long time ago
Long time
of
ago.
him, and it's not that he just left. And I look at that. What a unique situation where he knew this band, this rocket ship, that he was in a bad situation that he needed to get out of it. And yes, he did the Juju Hounds and some solo stuff, but for the most part, he's by himself and he's
Yeah,
staying out of this light and it's by all accounts from those who know him, living
that's
his best life. But at the end of the day, like what you just said that he's writing, fans were like, "Oh, he's because he's so talented, and we just want." So I hope he heard you. I hope he hears the fans that say, whether it's Guns N' Roses or not, that's besides the point.
right.
We want to hear that you're doing well. We want you to give us the gift of your songwriting. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
so I was going to ask you because I know I'm not very I don't like to poke and pry where my nose doesn't belong, but whatever part of the conversation you could share, but I guess you just did as far as
yes.
like picking up and yeah, I guess so. I was gonna ask that. I'm like, what does
Mm,
Izzy say when you're like, hey, what have you been up to?
yeah, yeah,
That's kind
yeah.
of the big thing. Because when you say what's up to anybody, that's a normal phrase. But with
And
Izzy, it's like, oh, really? What's up? What's going on?
yeah, I said, "Izzy, let's take a picture." He said, "Yeah, yeah, let's take a picture." Then he said, "Wait a minute, Bernard, wait a minute." I think he said he took a picture with somebody else. He said, "What did he say?" He said, he said, "I should have put my shades on," or something like that. I'm like, you too cool, brother. You don't need no shades.
I'll give this listener a shout out. Jonathan Holmes said, "Does Izzy radiate deep, icy chill, given how fucking cool he is?" So clearly, I guess he just did.
Man, he's cooler than a mother. I better,
Shut
I
your mouth.
better not say that, but he's he's cool as fuck.
It's okay.
Oh, and again, every time I see him, he's the same cat, and I appreciate that.
I love that. So what happens with Izzy? Whatever, we'll see. Where's Izzy is the
Yeah,
phrase. But what about with you, other than of course touring with the Stones? Again, as we're recording this, you have 2 days coming up in Jersey.
yeah.
Wh-
Uh-huh.
What
Well,
else are you working on?
I I'm in touch with a good friend guitar player that helped me on my not my last record, but the record before that one, the one I mentioned earlier called the Bora. He actually co-wrote and produced the record with me. His name is Robert Davis. Robert Davis is he's from Illinois. He was in a band. He was in a band that was making some waves some years ago called Revis. Revis.
Okay.
And so he and I had been talking, and I told him, Robert, I think it's time for me to go back in. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm there with you." So, we're gonna start bouncing some ideas off of each other for the next solo Bernard project. And also, I've been back and forth to Argentina. I'll tell you about it. That I've not talked about this a lot. I've not talked about this a lot at all. But I'm always trying to do something a little out of the box. My last record was a spoken word record. I don't know if you heard that, but
I
that
haven't.
record you should hear that. It's called Inside Out. Inside Out, and I'm not going to tell you what it's about. You need to listen to it. You need to listen to it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
I no, please, because I need more stuff because as my son, who who's hasn't quite said a word yet. We say maybe dad now. I've had so much Blues Clues and Sesame Street. I gotta
Well,
start playing him other stuff, music, and now that he's spoken word is perfect. I mean, it's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And I think you dig it. I think anybody who's a Rolling Stones fan will really like it, I think. But again, it's a spoken word record. And I've been going back and forth to Argentina a lot, and I'm uh I'm kind of I'm kind of in the middle of a project that I started doing there, which is really out of the box for me. I've never done anything like this. No one has ever heard me sing anything like this before. So I'm working on that too. So I got a couple of things that,
it's death metal, isn't it? Norwegian black metal. No, I was kidding. I look forward to to seeing what you the creativity that comes out of you. I mean, that's just so cool that again that you've had this consistency of a gig, but then you'll do your own records. It could be blues, it could be spoken word. I mean,
yes,
you're not limiting yourself. You have a lot of crayons in your crayon box, is a metaphor I like.
when I was young, yes, I think like most, not, I would say most cats, yes, you have stars in your eyes, but you get a little older and then it becomes about the music. And that's where I am now. It's about the music, and being creative. I'm not trying to keep up with anyone. I'm just trying to be happy and do some good music for myself and for others.
And you're doing a great job of it. And Bernard, I can't really thank you enough for doing this. I know you've a busy day, like you just came in.
I
I have
just came in from the gym just now.
okay.
Just
I thought you might have been at rehearsal or something. So look at you, you're still working out. Look at
hey
that.
man, as my friend Stevie Salas says, no chubby rock stars. So yeah, man, trying to keep it together. Trying to keep you got to keep it together. You're on stage with Mick. Look at him.
Before I forget, and that's lends itself to that. So when you see Mick out there, and yes, even Keith, does that is there anything about like their regimen when you see like what Keith does this, I got, or I should say Mick does this, I gotta do because you're younger, you're significantly younger than Mick Jagger, and it's you might think that's funny because you might consider yourself because you have more gray in your beard than I do.
Yeah.
We both look at Mick. It's like whoa, there's a whole bar that's raised of what you can do when you're 80. Is there anything that you see and you've learned directly from him about maybe how to take care of yourself, or is it just genetics? Is he just a freak and he's able to do it, or is there like a Keith? Is there
No,
a Mick Jagger
you just said it.
recipe?
You just said it.
He's a freak.
Yeah, he's definitely that, but even more important than that, take care of yourself.
Sure.
Take care of yourself. He takes care of himself. He really does. He takes care of himself physically and vocally. And vocally. Never hits the stage without warming up. Never. Never. And I believe that, that keeps his vocals together is, him doing those warm-ups before every show. Every
You,
show. I don't know what he does on his days off. I'm not sitting there with him, but I know before every show he's doing a physical workout and he's doing a vocal workout.
do you look into your magic, crystal ball? I mean, do you
Yeah.
imagine this being because I watched like an old Simpsons episode the other day from like 20 years ago, and they were making fun of the Rolling Stones back then for being old and touring.
Right.
Which is now, I mean, now they're thankfully, rightfully so, like idolized for doing what they're doing.
Mm.
Do you foresee this like ending ever? Like, is Mick just gonna be on stage one day and he's like, all right, that's it, I'm done, and he just goes up to rock and roll heaven and he just goes done.
And people ask me that all the time, and I can't answer.
Yeah.
People say, Bernard, is this gonna be the last one? Dude, you're asking the wrong person.
Hmm.
I have no idea. I have no idea, but I have no idea. I have no idea. But with is this the last one? I don't know. I was talking to someone the other day about that, and I thought, I don't know, why would they do the last one here? Why not do the last one where it started?
Okay.
So there he is.
Yeah, there he
There
is.
he is.
'Cause I got to take him to see the Rolling Stones. I mean, we can't go tomorrow. So, I
Man,
mean,
look
it's
at
all about
that.
taking Harrison Rex right here.
You got a new one.
I got a new one.
You got a new one. Still smelling fresh.
He's getting a little sweaty. He's getting, we was talking about it, like, he's like, he doesn't have the baby smell.
How
You know,
old is
he turned one April 26th.
Oh no, he still smells good.
Yeah, he took a
Yeah,
bath.
he still smells good. There he is. That's right. Grab that mic, Harrison.
I want to give you credit for something you said funny off the air because you're like, oh, you're in it, but you don't even know yet. I'm like, yeah, because he just has started to stand up.
Oh
And you're like,
man,
oh, that's just a flesh wound.
that's
You
just
don't
a
even know
flesh
yet.
wound, my friend. Soon come, Papa.
Right on. So I
Soon.
wanted you to meet him before we
Right
wrap.
on, man. It's good to see him. Hey, Harrison.
Harrison, look at Bernard. Say
Hi. Hi.
hello.
I got a little smile. Yeah. Well
Bernard.
done. Well done, man. When's the next one?
Oh, next we're done, right?
What? He needs to play, man.
He's got my brothers. We have friends. He's little baby friends. He's enough. He's enough. We have him and the cats. That's enough.
Yeah, never say never.
Yeah, you never say no. That is true. That is true. Bernard, thank you again for your time. It was
No
such
worries,
an honor and
Brando.
pleasure. Hope we get to do this again.
Yes,
And
anytime, man. Anytime.
thank you. So that does it for this episode of
And
Appetite
make
for
sure you
Distortion.
check out my last two records now, The Bora and Inside Out.
I'm gonna put links to them and everything in the bio so people can check them out if they missed them
Right
too.
on, man. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I think the one before that, Friends with Privileges. It has a lot of great musicians on it. Waddy Wachtel, a bunch of players. I love guitar, so uh Albert Lee is playing on it. It's a lot of great guitar players.
Well, I got to catch up on your entire discography. So for when you are on Izzy's record and maybe Slash's Keith record, then when I'm caught up, that's my wishful thinking.
All right, brother. Yes, put it out there.
You got it. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.